Alright, it's your boy Rico. We back out again with another reaction video. You feel me? So, today we're gonna do part 2 to the small town with the big missing persons problem. You feel me? Your boy got that list, but I tried to do that so perfect, it still couldn't do it. That's crazy. Either way, right? We back at it again with another one. And, we're gonna do a small little recap before we get into it. So, our suspect is Kevin Mailer, aka Boston. He is said to have killed April, killed Faith because she knew about April's killing, and then killed Kevin Craig because he knew about both killings. So that's just a little roundabout of where we're at right now. This is all alleged as far as we know, so we're gonna get into the video and get into the nitty gritty of this.
I'm in Oconee County, South Carolina, and I feel like I've been thrown into a new world. While this is a beautiful place to spend time, this place also harbors some dark secrets. In January of 2019, 37-year-old April Jones was found dead in a workshop on her property, with bruises and scrapes covering her body. A week after April was found dead, 26-year-old Faith Roach disappeared. She was last seen at a home that April was at just a few days before her death. 2 months later, 32-year-old Kevin Craig dies under suspicious circumstances. Investigators believe he died because he had information about Faith's disappearance. A name that's been brought up in connection with all three cases is a man named Kevin Mailer, aka Boston. At the time, he was a drug dealer in the area and even had murder charges written up against him for the death of Kevin Craig. My initial working theory was Kevin Mailer killed April and had to get rid of Faith and subsequently Kevin Craig in order to keep these murders covered up. They knew too much. I got my hands on a letter that was from a man in prison named John Evans, who wrote to a family member of his. He explained that Kevin Mailer told him he was going to kill April Jones. I wanted to speak with John Evans, but before I could get to him...
Hey, I hope I'm not bothering you.
No, you're good.
I just want to tell you, okay, so, you remember you was asking about John Evans?
Yeah.
He's dead.
Remember that? The guy who got the letter?
Hey man, that's true?
John Evans ended up dying.
Do you think there's any chance it has anything to do with the letter?
I think it's got to be looked at.
Yeah.
Could be a coincidence, but
Yeah.
the coincidence is everybody that's in this case is dying.
Very true. Gotta add, y'all.
We'll talk more about John Evans later. As you continue to listen to this story, you're going to hear about more murders, deaths, people going missing, homes burning down. All of these cases we cover occur in Walhalla, South Carolina, among the same group of people. And at the foundation of all of this mayhem lies one common thing: drugs. I decided to reach out to a former Oconee County Sheriff's Office investigator to learn more about this scene and try to wrap my head around it. David McMahon is 57 years old. He was born in Oconee County and has seen how drugs have affected and changed this area over the years.
I was born and raised in Oconee, so I decided to get into law enforcement because I wanted to help people, and that was my way of doing it. I retired in November of 2020. Here I am, still heavily involved in things that's going on, and I want to see things finished.
Yeah.
What I saw in the mid-2000s, meth really took off in this area. It was a thing to go on the internet and figure out a recipe to make meth.
We keep going back to it, y'all.
People were doing it everywhere in the rural areas up in here. And I would go and get records of this drugstore and this drugstore and this drugstore who was buying Sudafed, and I would lay them on the table and I would say, these guys are matching, they're buying stuff,
really need to call
and
this
I knew
series
that guy was
Walhalla
going to be
and
making
Walhalla
meth that
for
night.
real.
So I busted 10 meth labs one year just by doing that. It was like a puzzle. I enjoyed doing it because I hate meth. You take that first hit of meth and you always are chasing that same high from then on. So it results in, I need more meth, so I result in stealing. Stealing results later on into possibly violence. It's a downhill spiral. All of your meth now is coming from Mexico. We have Atlanta, Greenville, and then we have Charlotte. And guess what's slap dab in the middle? Oconee County on I-85. We have a little small war in our country, and the police officer is taking the brunt of it.
I had a really interesting perspective shift while investigating. I think I subconsciously saw these types of drugs only affecting certain types of people, like someone who was already kind of lazy, probably lived in an unkempt house, generally unproductive,
Cat,
who
I'm
would
telling
easily
you.
give into
Telling
whatever
you.
desires
That's
they
a big
felt.
sign of mother
But
abuse.
that's
Like,
not the
now that
case.
you have a cat,
I was
'cause I
able to
love
see
cats.
photos
Like, I
of
have a
various
cat, but you
people
feel
throughout
me?
the
Like,
years and watch
when you have
them
some,
in
like, cat
photos
shit,
go from
yeah,
good-looking,
method
well-dressed, and put-together people to completely
catfish,
wrecked
cat
by
shit.
a drug addiction.
You
And there
abusing
could
something.
be various reasons why people would initially turn to drugs. From someone being prescribed drugs, forming an addiction, and turning to illegal narcotics when they run out of their prescription, to someone just wanting to escape the emotional weight of some incredibly tragic things that have happened to them. And before they knew it, their whole life was changed. A few caveats: I'm not saying every type of drug is bad, and two, I'm not saying I know how to fix the drug problem or the right or wrong ways to do it, but it is a big problem that needs attention. David saw this problem in his community, so he was happy to help. Anyways, remember from last episode, David actually knew John Evans. Knowing what we know now, this clip is tougher to listen to.
I always try to give people the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he's going to have a turnaround in his life.
Yeah.
I hope he does. He's got some really good people in his family. He wasn't raised that way. You've heard that saying before. He wasn't raised that way. He really wasn't raised that way.
Yeah.
It just something happened. Drugs, I'm sure.
Yeah, got into the wrong circles.
Just 1 month later, John Evans was dead. So let's talk about John Evans. I was in Walhalla driving somewhere when I got a call from a source. I had no idea what it was about, so I pulled over and turned on my recorder.
Hey, I hope I'm not bothering you.
No, you're good.
I just want to tell you, okay, so, you remember you was asking about John Evans?
Yeah.
He's dead.
What?
Yeah, like I just found out. It's all over Facebook. Everyone's posted, Rip John Evans, all this stuff. Like, I don't know what happened. I'm trying to find out. As soon as I do, I'll let you know. But yeah, I just now seen the post on there, and I'm kind of freaking out inside my head a little bit.
After I got the call, I sat and recorded some of my thoughts. Like Faith may have, and Kevin Craig may have, John Evans had information that could potentially implicate Kevin Mailer for murder. And I had just spoke with Kevin Mailer for the very first time earlier that week. Digital evidence will play a big role in this series as we try to get to the truth of what happened here in Walhalla, South Carolina. There is tons of digital information out there online about pretty much everyone. Trust me, I know this fact better than most because oftentimes I'm the one scouring the internet to try to find information on people. I want to thank Aura for sponsoring this video. I remember using some resources that I developed to look into myself and see what was out there. I was shocked at how much personal information there was about me online.
All right. He got an ad that's popping up in here, and we're going to skip this. But while we pause, we're going to talk a little bit. Yeah, so John Evans received a letter from Kevin Mailer, aka Boston, that said and detailed that he was going to kill April. He was going to get a phone call from John Evans the same way, he called Kevin Mailer in jail. We're just going to call him Boston from now on to keep it simpler. I don't want to mix up Kevin Craig and Kevin Mailer. I don't want you guys to get that mixed up. Kevin Craig is the victim. Kevin Mailer is the supposed suspect. So yeah, that's what's going on right now. We're discovering that John Evans is dead. If you watched the last video, you probably know that, For some updates or, things that you didn't get here, you'll probably have to watch the last video to get. So, get with me on that. Come on, man. Trying to tell you, I will try to recap as best as I can through periods in here, but the things that I don't remember or I can't touch on, like I said, it was a lot of information. Go back to the first video and then come here and, you'll be up to date. So, I got y'all. I'm about to skip this ad and we're back.
So I just got a call maybe 5 minutes ago saying that all over Facebook people are posting about John Evans being dead. That's the only information I have. I don't know how, I don't know what's going on, but I spoke on the phone yesterday.
Oh, did he?
Was yesterday the first day? Or was the day before yesterday?
We just gotta make sure these days.
With Kevin Mailer, and we started going over everything. I never mentioned John Evans, though.
I mean, not even close.
I was stressing out pretty badly in this moment. I couldn't find much information on John Evans' death other than the fact that he was in prison and died of an overdose. I've had people tell me that one thing they believe Boston does is get information about people and hold it over their heads to get them to do things for him. If Boston heard that John Evans had written this letter accusing him of killing April, could he have had someone give John Evans a deadly dose of drugs? And was there a chance that because of something I did, Boston found out about the letter, and I'm indirectly responsible for his death? This thought initially terrified me, but the more I thought about it, the more confident I was that if Boston found out about the letter, it had nothing to do with me. At this point, multiple people knew about the letter, and information spreads in this area like a wildfire. I'm going to introduce them in a later episode, but through investigating these cases so deeply, I had gotten to know the investigators for the Oconee County Sheriff's Office. I texted one asking if it was true that John Evans was dead. He texted back, "It's absolutely true." I turned on my recorder and called him immediately.
Hey, man.
Hey, man, that's true?
Yes, drug overdose in prison.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Jimmy and I was just sitting here talking about that.
That's wild. Do you think there's any chance it has anything to do with the letter?
I think it's got to be looked at.
Yeah.
Could be a coincidence, but
Yeah.
the coincidence is everybody that's in this case is dying.
Yeah, it seems like one coincidence after the other.
Yeah, exactly.
I had just gotten off the phone with the investigator and was recording some of my thoughts. When I got a call from
gave me
Kevin
heartburn
Whalen.
when he said
Kevin's
that.
calling me right now.
This is a global
true.
Hellink prepaid
It
call
really is,
from.
Kevin, Halen.
My mind was racing. Should I bring up John Evans? Will that help or hinder the investigation? I had to make a split-second decision.
Hey, did you know John Evans?
I decided to mention it. I explained why in the podcast version of this, but I felt I had the right reasons to. I'm going to play a section of our talk without any edits. No ums or pauses are cut out or shortened or lengthened, so you can really feel what the conversation was like. Keep in mind, I'm processing if I should tell him or not in real time, and processing how to tell him without him knowing why I even know who John Evans is in the first place.
What are you talking
To be
about?
honest with you, I mean, I don't want you just to up and disappear out of my life.
Yeah, I
You
won't.
know what I'm saying? Just because I am a person and I do have feelings and I do, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure. Hey, did you know John Evans?
John Evans? Yeah, I know John Evans.
Because I've just been getting to kind of know, like, all the whole, like, circle in Walhalla, really, you know, kind of everyone around there, and, you know, kind of everyone's names come up, so I'm really trying to get to know everyone, but I guess I just found out that he overdosed in prison and died yesterday.
No, don't tell me that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm sorry to break that to you, man.
No.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I know I'm a big
And
dumb
again,
dude.
man, I'm sorry to break that to you. It's just, you know,
This is
I
much
figured,
easier. Okay.
you know, maybe hearing it from me as opposed to just, you know,
Me and him were really, really, really close. He was like one of my best friends.
was he?
Yeah. He was another one that was always there for me, like Kevin was.
Yeah.
He called me his big brother.
He called you his big brother?
He didn't have that much time to do it. He didn't, we treated each other like brothers.
I don't know.
I'm gonna be honest. I didn't really
I
think
can't say
past
that.
what to do or say after I told him, and I found myself in a really odd situation. I was either listening to a man who was responsible for the death of John Evans, acting out fake grief, or listening to a man who was genuinely grieving because he lost a close friend. What do you say to that man? when you have no idea which one is true?
Man.
So let's investigate.
We got another ad, yo. Okay, so before we even start again, right? This man was crying. He broke down when he heard the news about John Evans passing away. So, I mean, of course, as a killer, like, and you're already in there fighting cases, I don't think that somebody who wants to come home would, would like give any information or any inkling that they had something to do with it. But how did those tears sound to y'all? Did those sound genuine? Like, I don't even want to really give my opinion. I don't really have one, to be honest, on those. Like, I'm very conflicted myself, like how he was, So, I'm very curious to see how y'all feel about that. Like were those crocodile tears, or like, do you guys really think like, oh no, bro is really genuinely upset, like his brother just passed away, He called him Big Brother, that's what he says. So, I don't really have too much more to say than that. I just wanted you guys to like take a minute and just reflect on what just happened. That's why I said, nothing is set in stone, and we're really just reflecting on the information, like how he is, But feel free to have your own perspective at the same time. Like, I want to hear you guys give your opinion on it too.
Investigate John Evans' claims to see if they fit into what we know about April Jones's death. In the letter, John Evans says that Boston said he was going to use a certain substance in order to kill April. I'm assuming he was going to do this by putting this substance in drugs he would sell her. I'm going to call the substance John Evans speaks about in his letter Substance A. It's very unlikely they would have tested for the presence of Substance A during the autopsy. Also, Substance A has very little research on what happens if it's intravenously injected into the bloodstream, like April would have done if it was put in her drugs. But I did find one published research paper that studied two instances. In one instance, the person survived with medical treatment, and in the other, the individual died about 48 to 72 hours after the injection. Though this person also had injected other substances into his body in addition to Substance A. But I continued on, did more research, and by the end of it, no longer believed Substance A was used to kill April. This stems from issues in the amount of Substance A that would be needed in order to kill April, and the low likelihood that Boston would be able to mix in enough of Substance A in April's drugs without her being able to see it, as well as other red flags that should be pretty obvious during an autopsy if April had died as a result of Substance A. But as I'm doing my research and forming my opinion on matters, I like to think of information as weight on a scale. I'm continuously adding weight to one side or the other side of the scale as new information comes in. My belief in something is proportional to the unevenness of those scales, which are rarely completely weighed down on one side. Finding that the substance John Evans mentions is very likely incorrect doesn't cause me to put a ton of weight on the not guilty side, as Kevin could have just changed his mind after he spoke with John Evans and used another substance, but it does cause me to put a little weight on the not guilty side. And as I dug through all the information I gathered, I found more and more weight to put on the not guilty side of the scale. I'll speak more on this later, but one of the biggest struggles I had when creating this documentary was the fear of letting people down. To the point I honestly thought about not creating this documentary at all and just leaving the true crime world behind. I got to know Kevin Mailer. I spent time with him. I spent time with his daughter, who believes he's innocent and desperately wanted my help defending her father. I also spent time with the families and loved ones of April Jones, Faith Roach, and Kevin Craig, many of whom believe Kevin Mailer is responsible for their loved one's death, and desperately wanted my help exposing Kevin Mailer, finding answers, and finding justice. So what am I going to do with...
Alright, I apologize you guys if I butchered the names at one point. It's April Jones and Faith Roach. Those are just two women that passed. According to, Faith Roach is still missing. So we don't know what happened to her actually. We don't know if she's dead, alive. We just know that we don't know where she is, So let's not just say that, There could be a chance she's still alive.
That tension? Well, I'm going to make sure that I tell both sides of the story. There's a lot to cover, so let's break things down one by one. First, I want to consider why John Evans would write the letter if Kevin did not tell him he was going to kill April. Like we spoke about earlier, drugs make you do things you wouldn't normally do. People will do anything to get to the next high, whether that's violence, theft, or even lying about a good friend of yours. You can get drugs in prison, but it's not nearly as easy as when you are on the streets. If John Evans was going through drug withdrawals, he might have been trying to figure out a way to get out of prison sooner, so he could have easier access to drugs. He was friends with a man who was the suspect of various deaths, and maybe he thought he could leverage that. If he said he had info about a murder, could he cut a deal with the police to get out early? Next, I want to look at Kevin ending up with April's phone. This felt like a pretty big piece of evidence against
Another ad, y'all. There's hella ads in here. I don't know why. Stop it. Stop it.
Kevin Mailer. Here's what Kevin says about the phone situation.
What happened was they had picked me up, gave me a ride, her and the next door neighbor. I had left my phone in the truck, so I went to pick up my phone that night. Barry Neal's the one that brought me to April's house. The neighbor gave me a couple phones because he couldn't find my phone. He gave me a couple phones, but I don't even know what happened to him.
Originally, this story felt suspicious to me. If Kevin couldn't find his phone, why would Tom just give him some phones he had lying around? I didn't quite understand this, and I kind of felt like he may have been making the story up to portray a legitimate reason as to why he wound up with April's phone after she was found dead. That he never lost his phone and had April's because he killed her. But Person A's story of Kevin saying, "That girl's got my phone," actually corroborates Kevin's story that he lost his phone and believed April had it.
Looks up like this and goes, "She's got my phone," and runs out of the house. Runs out.
But why would April give up her phone just because Kevin couldn't find his? Two things to touch on here. One, after getting to know Kevin better, he clarified the situation. Kevin believed they had his phone and were lying to him about not having it. So essentially, he strong-armed Tom into giving him a few phones. Two, I think Kevin might not have actually had April's phone. The reason we believe he wound up with April's phone is because of the John Evans letter and a few people I spoke with who saw this phone. But why did they believe it was April's? Well, they actually couldn't get into the phone because it was password protected, but there was an SD card in the phone with pictures on it, and April and her family were in many of those pictures. Remember last episode when I mentioned that during the days leading up to her death, April stole her mother's phone? I think this might be the phone that Kevin wound up with. It wouldn't make sense for April to just give up her phone since Kevin lost his, but it wouldn't surprise me if they gave him her mom's when he was being pushy. Moving on. Let's look at a bit more of Person A's story.
I said, "Oh, by the way, if you're gonna leave, don't go that way, because there's a dead girl down there." This motherfucker, I swear to God, looks up like this and goes, "She's got my phone," and runs out of the house. Runs out. Him and Barry did not come back until 7 a.m.
When I really thought about this piece of information, much of it could be explained by other things. Let's suppose for a moment Kevin did not have anything to do with April's death. If Kevin did leave his phone with April, and then she died, he should freak out about it. He's a drug dealer. The phone would incriminate him on some serious drug charges. If April had it on her when she died, well, now the police had Kevin's phone. And I actually think if this moment is true, it could point to his innocence. Let me explain. When April was found, she was cold to the touch. She had been dead for roughly 6 to 36 hours. It wouldn't make a ton of sense if Kevin had known she was dead or was going to die for a few days and had known that she had had his phone, but didn't make the connection that that was a bad thing until after she was found. It seems more likely he didn't know she was going to die, and when he found out that she did, he freaked out because it was unexpected news. But what about Kevin knowing that it was April when Person A said there was a dead girl down the road? Well, Kevin was a drug dealer who was connected to everyone in that area. It wouldn't be surprising at all if he heard about April's death before Person A did. Another possibility is Person A could simply be misremembering parts of the story. And I actually know this to be true for some parts of it. I looked up historical weather data for the night April was found, and it did not rain.
January 28th is when April got killed. You had something to do with that shit that happened to April, because he left here at 11:30. And I'll never forget this. It was not raining when he left, but when he came back it was, and it was 2:30 a.m.
This was not the only instance of information from Person A that was simply not true, and the more I spoke with Person A, the less credible they became in my view. Am I saying right now that I believe there's no chance that Kevin Mailer had something to do with April's death? No. But what I am saying is we need to take some weight off of the guilty side of our did Kevin kill April scale. Speaking with Kevin, he mentioned there are scenarios involving April's death that no one is talking about.
She was having an affair with her next door neighbor because that's the last place I seen her. So I went to the neighbor's house. She finally came out of the woods. She was scared to death. It was the first time I've ever seen her carrying a gun. She said she was hiding from her husband. There had been a history of abuse between them two. I don't know if he knew about her and the neighbor, but it has been going on for a long time.
With this information, let's consider a few other theories in regards to April's death. Allegedly, April was...
We got another ad, y'all, but that is wild. That is wild. It's a lot of shit going on. She came out of the woods with a gun, saying that her neighbor, you know, the man she's having an affair with, chased, or her husband. It's a lot going on. I don't know if it's neighbor or the husband. We gonna see again. Cause
having an affair with the man next door, Tom. He was actually the last person in the timeline who claimed to see her. The police report says he indicated that she crossed his side yard to return to her home. He went on to report that she left Sunday morning without additional issues and seemed to be in good health. I actually don't have much to say about Tom because the people who I spoke with didn't have much to say about Tom either. Looking at his record, he doesn't have any violent crime charges, mainly traffic and DUI charges with one drug charge. I did attempt to speak with him and he politely declined. Really, all I have to go on here is no one else seeing Tom as a suspect.
You cannot rule them out though. They were having
When there is a suspicious death, the first person to always look at is the significant other. Here's what a few different people had to say about Andy and April's relationship.
I always told them that they had a fatal attraction.
Andy Jones, the husband.
Because they loved each other, but they hated each other. Listen, I'd have to go over there and get between them fighting. I'd have a golf club, I'd swing it at him.
Yeah.
I mean,
they'd fight.
They physically fought.
You either get the good side or you get the bad side. That's all I gotta say. I've watched her run after Andy with a shovel before.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, it was bad. I watched her T-bone Andy in the truck, just with a Ranger. Like, you ain't going nowhere.
So Andy and April had a pretty toxic relationship, but from what I could gather, both of them played a pretty major role in it. But then I kept hearing from different people that the days leading up to her death, April was acting paranoid about Andy specifically. This sounds pretty damning for Andy, but there could be an explanation for this. Here's a quote from cornerstonehealingcenter.com. Meth affects its users' brain chemistry, often resulting in symptoms such as psychosis or paranoia. After using, they feel they are being lied to, or even the closest people to them have malicious intentions. Additionally, the neighbor Tom called Andy on Sunday morning. Here's what the police report says about this. Thomas had called her husband Andy Jones, who came over seeing the victim and her state. Andy told him to just call the police and let them handle it. Tom says he didn't call the police because he didn't want to do that to April. Thomas stated that she was acting paranoid, also due to the drugs she was on. End quote. Andy told me...
Alright, I don't mean to just hear so quiet most of this time. I mean, I have been talking throughout it, but I really just want to let him give the information to everyone so that you can get the best handle on it and you can take your perspective from here. Because, like I said, it's a lot of information. Like, there's a lot of twists and turns. There's not much that we have that's like concrete evidence. Like, we just have a lot of hearsay, and even the coroner's report, it says suspicious death. We don't even know if it was a murder, you know? That's what I'm saying. Like, it could be a murder because he's suspected of the murder of Kevin Craig. They believe that's a murder, you know? We don't really know what happened to April Jones. Like, we just know that she passed. Like, but even her family is very suspicious about the way that it happened. And Boston is the neighborhood, you know? Neighborhood pharmacist. That's what we're going to call it, you know? So, he's supplying the neighborhood from the White House, you know, doing his thingy thing. But at the same time, you know, we don't know if it's just him. We have, like, multiple suspects now. We have, like, a couple. We have Tom Smith and then her husband, which is Andy Jones. So, yeah, let's keep going.
That when April gets on drugs, that's when she can get physical. He learned it was just better to let the police handle it. I think this account that is told by both Andy and Tom gives credence to the idea that Andy wasn't in a state to kill his wife. that he was actually trying to make sure they didn't get into an altercation. Lastly, I want to talk about the possibility of the coroner being correct and April dying of an overdose and hypothermia with no foul play involved. Here's an excerpt from the police report. I, Sergeant Rollletter, along with Lieutenant Williams, have both observed former inmate April Norton on several occasions when she was brought to jail to be in what appeared to be an intoxicated state on some type of unknown substance. She had bruising to multiple parts of her body. When we would ask her about her bruises, she would tell us it's none of your business. We would see her strip her clothes off and lay in the floor. Oftentimes she would be on her knees with her shoulders down, with her head also on the floor. Dr. Woodward stated from the results of the autopsy, there was no evidence of the victim being assaulted or tied up. The victim had been exposed to the cold, causing the color of her bruises to be a red color. The toxicology report did confirm that the victim did die from a drug-induced overdose.
I got dark humor, I'm sorry.
When I look at the photos of April's body, there seems to be much more going on than just some bruising, but I'm not a medical doctor, and I do believe that there's a chance there was no foul play in April's death. I want to note that I noticed a bias in myself when creating this section. If the initial police report is correct, this is still an incredibly tragic event, but also relatively simple, leaving me without much of a story to tell. I have an incentive to downplay the initial thoughts on the case as to make other theories look more interesting for this documentary. I also felt that there was some bias or self-imposed pressure to downplay this official police narrative because the family doesn't believe this narrative to be true, and presenting things that run counter to what April's loved ones believe can feel uncomfortable at times. April's life was a roller coaster, and she seemed to be kind of a real-life Jekyll and Hyde. She spent time...
Got another ad, y'all. And when I said dark humor, it's like, I just don't want to make a joke because she not here no more. But I told y'all, I'm like, 10 signs of stimulant abuse, though, feel me? If you ain't seen that video, watch that one, feel me? They be off the butt, face down, ass up. Be sure they be busting it. They be busting it off the drugs. I ain't gonna hold you. Shit be wild. Like, you gotta, no diddy, you gotta don't do drugs. Stay away from drugs. Like, feel me? I signed my little name on the DARE poster back in school. Don't do drugs. Like, you feel me? If you gonna do, nah. Don't do drugs. That's it. You know?
Time in and out of jail. She lost custody of her kids. She stole from loved ones to buy drugs. When people die, sometimes it seems as if they're talked about through rose-colored glasses and that their good deeds are amplified far beyond reality. I didn't get that feeling from people I spoke with that knew April. She was
Come on, yo. Come on.
Caring, and would often put others before herself.
I go to sleep that night. I get woke up at 4 o'clock that morning.
She is beautiful.
I walked through the living room. Andy was sitting there. My stepdad, and he looked like he seen a ghost. I was like, y'all, do not tell me that my mama is gone. As soon as I was saying that, my nanny said, baby, your mama's gone. That night, I lost a piece of me that I'll never get back. And somebody as selfish and as dark and as twisted as it gets that did that to my mama, their day reckoning is gonna come. Their judgment day is gonna come. You took my mom, you took a daughter, took a wife, a sister, an aunt. For what? Now, my mama's not gonna be at my wedding one day. She's not gonna see my first kid. You took that away from me. 17 years old. You took my mom. After my life, everybody's took everything else from me. I had nothing, and you still took everything from me. It's not fair. I'm telling you right now, this past 4 years has been the most fucked up years of my life. I've went through so many changes as a person. I've screamed, I've cried. I've literally went and laid on my mom's grave all night. Drunk. Went and just laid and cried. Like, I feel her with me all the time. But it's not the same.
While we have gone over the counter-arguments to the theory that Kevin killed April, we haven't been able to rule it out either. And we have only scratched the surface on ways these cases could be connected. Shortly before her death, April had met with Kevin Mailer at the White House.
People would tell me that she was at the end of my dirt road at the White House, meeting Kevin Mailer, getting drugs. I have been told that Faith was out there.
Faith went to the bathroom. She heard two men beating the snot out of a female. The next day, they found April Jones dead.
Could the two men be Kevin Mailer and Barry Neal? Could the woman be April Jones? And could Faith have seen something that ultimately resulted in her disappearance just 1 week later? Next on A Mountain Mystery.
I believe Barry Neal knows where her body is. I believe it got something to do with it. I did a search earlier in his house and I actually found base diary underneath his bed.
Like you, for example, I mean, you were fixing to put yourself in some serious harm.
Barry and Boston come up there with Faith's phone, and Barry was deleting shit off of it. Barry says they ain't never gonna find her. It was a bloodbath.
Boston said they'll cut her up and scatter her, and he said all he knows is they cut her up and parts of her is in the rock quarry.
Click this video to watch the next episode right now. Also, I've got a podcast version of this episode with a bunch of extra information included. It's almost 20 minutes longer. Details are in the description below. See you on the next one.
Alright, y'all. So the video was over. That shit was wild. Like, that shit was wild. The one guy we forgot about was Barry Neal. You know? We didn't mention him. I still want to know who that anonymous caller is because they snitching like a motherfucker. How do they know all this shit? Who is that? Who is that telling like that? Like, not even saying like that, but who is that telling like that? Who got all that information? Like, goddamn, like you ain't tell the police that. If you know all that shit, I ain't advocating snitching, but goddamn, like you shit. You done told it all already. But okay, my bad, y'all. I ain't mean to get loud like that, but wow, you know a lot. Scared for whoever crossed you, but we out of here. That was the end of this reaction video. Wow, like I don't even know how to recap this one for y'all. Just please, just stay tuned. Just stay tuned. Like, yeah. Just stay tuned. This shit has me all over the place. Like, if you saw this, I'm sure it has you all over the place. You don't know who to really center in on right now. Like, we're trying to zone in on who the real suspect is, and we don't even. Yeah, I know. I'm still like, my mind is everywhere out that. And I'm gonna lie to you, trying to figure it out. But yeah, like Big Glow said, at the end of the day gotta end.
Say that you love me, lil' shawty. Say that you love me, lil' shawty. Say that you love me, lil' shawty. I know you don't love me, but why would you lie to me? Shit made me hard in the heart, then it tore me apart, and you said you would ride for me. I used to think how you hurt me and wipe my own tears. Remember you cried to me. I put my heart in the coffin, been feeling exhausted. It felt like I'm losing myself.